Welcome everybody. This is the Meshery development meeting. Today is June 2nd, and let's get started. I think I'll just give uh, a quick overview on what is happening in Meshery CTL. I guess you can see these. See this, right? Uh, one second. So this is the Meshery CTL command tracker. I guess some of you might be familiar with this because I have been showing this on every meeting. What this basically is, it tracks the progress of development of Meshery CTL, which is the command line interface for Meshery. And if you are looking into start contributing to something, like this is a good place to start. There are a lot of columns and that needs to be filled, a lot of boxes that needs to be green colored. So yeah, and we also have bug hunting sessions every week, and I guess this week's will be this weekend, I guess, most probably. So uh, yeah, that that's something to look into. And we, and there are also some open issues in Meshery CTL. There are a lot of open issues in Meshery CTL, and most of these are good first issues, and most of these issues are related to Jekyll, basically Meshery dogs, and some of these are related to Golang. So you can take a look at those, and we need your help here. And that's it. With that said, if you like to work on it, just ping on the Meshery CTL channel, and yeah, we'll assign some issues to you. So with that said, let's move on to Dhruv, who will be demoing mesh map logs, terminal logs. Dhruv, yeah.
Hey, I never knew. Thank you.
Hi Dhruv, yeah. Do you want to share your screens?
Yeah, let me share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah,
So before I start something, let me start with the demo. Then I will tell you what is happening. So as you can see, I'm currently changing few of the configs of my Kubernetes cluster, and you can see over here there are some things happening. Now, okay, so let me get into what we are doing over here. So we wanted to add a capability where Meshery could act as a terminal in which you can interact with your Kubernetes cluster itself. So there are two part of what we are doing over here. First is logs, and second is interacting with that particular pod or instance or whatever thing you are manipulating with. So this particular thing which we are doing is focusing on the log part of it. So currently, this particular terminal is only like it is hooked to Meshery operator over here, which is in my cluster. Uh, if I do this, yeah, so it is currently getting logs from Meshery operator. It's just a pod running inside my cluster. Currently, what is in works is basically anyone would be able to choose which cluster he wants, which pod he wants to get his logs from, whether he wants multiple pods to get his logs from which container from this particular pod he wants a log from. So now to make that selection easier, we decided to put this terminal and log inside Mishmap. So the current effort, which is ongoing, I cannot demo it right now, is basically where the person would have ability to select a certain pod from Mishmap itself and tell that I want to either bundle these two pods or I want to select this pod, and in this pod I want to select this container, and they will able to get logs for those particular kind of things inside Mishmap itself. So that's the basically the idea behind this, and our efforts are going towards that. So currently, the thing which I demoed was basically We are working on the capability for them to choose from mesh map itself. But for now, I had set this terminal to get logs from Meshery operator itself, so that I could show you how we are working and stuff like that. So that was my demo and pretty fast explanation. If someone has any doubt, I can clear it, or I can dwell more into it if you like. Like this particular thing, this is a feature which we add in meshing itself. Uh, that's someone knows that. Thing. Yeah. If anyone has any doubts, or did anyone not get what I was saying at all?
Yeah, you always kind of wonder that, don't you? If when there's no questions. So, Dhruv, just to add some flavor to what you're showing, there's
Mm-hmm.
some intriguing aspects of what's happening here. So one of the things is that you're basically showing like a live tail of a container that's running in
Yeah, exactly.
Kubernetes. And near as I understand, like while you might not be showing it right now, that like the intention of what you and Abhishek are working on is that a user might, well, they might, they might want to see logs from one container, maybe multiple containers at the same
Yep.
time, or maybe even how would it look if they wanted to see like, and I don't, multiple containers at the same time, but not in the same
Pods.
terminal session. Like, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that is also a workflow which we have thought about and is on implementation. I couldn't show it because it's half of work done and half not done. But what we have in mind is basically they will have, you can think it as a different instances like you have in VS Code itself, where they will be able to switch between the groups which they have created. Like group one would be I want logs from all the containers which are in pod Meshery operator. So that might be one group. The other group might be I want logs from two pods, every container in this two particular pods. So that might be group two, and they will able to switch between those two groups. More like there would be a drop down most probably over here on the right hand side where they will be able to switch between those, and they would be named appropriately depending on the pod name or something like that. So, operator one, Meshery operator one from this case, something like that.
Rather than a drop down, could it be simple buttons like we have tabs that would be
uh
more easy to navigate?
Buttons. So what would be the use case when there would be like 10 groups which someone has created, or like he'll leave 10 like 5 or 4, that might get bundled up together.
Not like everything is showing in the screen, but like we have tabs from the top bar, we can switch it in our browser and everything like these.
Oh, okay. You're talking about this sessions. Um, that might be doable. Like what I had in mind was something like in VS Code, we are able to switch between tabs. Uh,
Oh, okay,
they have
okay.
a,
I got it. I got it. I
but yeah, that might be also a way to look into it. That's not a bad option. Yeah, the issue is what I was thinking about.
Oh, hey, wait a second. Look at that. That's kind of an interesting concept. I guess I didn't realize that before. So I think what Ayush was, suggesting sort of to explore is the use of tabs as you might find them in your terminal, just those tabs right at the top. But then also, it looks like so aligned with your prior thinking or your current thinking, Dhruv, is the controls in VS Code for having a drop down to switch between them, that's one thing. But it looks, boy, I don't, obviously I haven't used these controls before because I don't know how to get back to the drop down mode, but they let you switch between like tab. Wait, is it weird? Yeah, anyway, hopefully we don't make it as complex as they have. You can do split window in the tabs, do tabs. Curious. Drew, one of the potential advantages to something like this, like a vertical sub menu, it should you know, Abhishek and yourself and whomever else is working on this arrive at a point wherein, you know, if the workflow for a user is that they've selected maybe a handful of pods or a handful of containers, and they start to get logs, and it turns out either there's just too many logs coming through, they can't keep up, or they accidentally selected a container that they don't need logs from, and so they've established a session, but they'd like to basically remove, you know, like eject one of the containers from the current active sort of multiplexed stream of logs. That this type of a control, like if there's a boy, getting emails, if there was a session here and then configuration of that session, like if there's a sub list of the names of the pods, they might have a check. This might be a checkbox. Then they can like uncheck that pod, uncheck. So Drew, hopefully, did you get any of that?
I just came back. My laptop was on. I'm stopping my cluster and stuff like that.
Cool. You know what? I won't bore everyone. I will show you what that later. But yeah,
Okay.
that's.
I'm so sorry.
I can relate with that.
By the way, just as a side note, because if I don't do it now, I might forever lose my opportunity. Drew, is that a COVID cut? Is that like a, you know?
That's that's too lazy to go out, but
Okay, cool, good. Okay, good. And anyway, do other people have thoughts for Drew? Like there's, I'll toss one in. I don't know if everyone has necessary. And Drew, if you don't mind, if you still have it up, if you're able to share, just kind of look at it. Like one of the cool things about the log viewer that that's being worked on here is that, well, it opens up precedents for more just more real-time feedback from the infrastructure under management. And so, you know, as if you've ever used Meshery to provision a service mesh, and then you've opened up a terminal window to go query your Kubernetes system to see what had happened. Well, you know, like this starts to take away the need to do that, because you can start to get just, you know, updates from the infrastructure in that way. The use cases that the use case I just said is related. It's not exactly the same, but something for all of you to think about. The other thing I think to think about is, while Drew was showing this capability in context of the mesh map plugin, I think the intention, I think the intention here is probably to, like, if you consider, if you've, let me bring up Meshery's UI if I have it. If you've used the dashboards, like the control plane dashboard, I may not have started Meshery just yet, then you will have seen in your system when you're running a service mesh, it will tell you, Meshery will tell you the details of your service mesh. I'm starting Meshery now. And it will, okay, good, yeah. And if you've got a list of components, you could envision there being a small log icon, like next to each of those components, in case you wanted to initiate a live tail from, you know, any of those components. And so maybe that log viewer at the bottom maybe that becomes a universally available window, maybe. So things for people to think about. Good stuff.
Uh, Thanks, Drew. Anybody have any other comments? So I guess we have a couple of newcomers on the call. Ankit, Manish, and Abhi. Manish is having has a mic problem, but if you would like to introduce yourself, you can turn your mic on and yeah, just introduce yourself, or you can uh, write down in chat. So anybody want to introduce themselves?
Hello, myself Aniket Ranjan. I am currently in third year of my college, uh, pursuing BTech from Christ University, Bangalore. I am interested in open source. I have means this is my second meeting. I just joined in on Friday, and I think this group is quite welcoming for us because there are regular sessions like this, and I am able to grasp more and more and want to get involved in this uh, open source community.
Hello, hello everyone. My name is Abhishek. For short, you can call me Abhi, and I am again a junior from New Delhi, India, and I want to learn more about service meshes and distributed system and microservices. In also, I just find this project and Layer 5 organization, and it's really sounds amazing to me. So that I can learn. And at the same time, I can contribute in a meaningful way. So yeah, so that's why I have joined this kind of organization, and it's really very great, and up until now it's very fruitful for me.
Thank you guys. Welcome to the community. We also have a newcomers call that is taking place tomorrow. uh, I guess you will probably have access to the community calendar. If not, uh, just ping on the chat and someone will get that sorted out. So we have a newcomers call tomorrow, and that's a good place to get started and get yourself oriented with the layer 5 projects. Awesome. So let's move on to the next item on our agenda. We have Utkarsh, who will be talking about patterns and Istio virtual services. Utkarsh, all yours.
Yeah. Uh, Meshery UI was not supposed. I hope no one saw the ugly flash. That's not something to be seen as of now. That's in work. Today's demo is unfortunately not of that. It is about being able to configure virtual services, to provision virtual services and configure virtual services using pattern files. I've demoed pattern files quite a lot of time. This time it's different. I'm not doing the same thing. This time it's about being able to create a virtual service and completely configure it using pattern files. You would be able to access almost everything that is configurable in a virtual service using patterns. I'm demoing a very basic functionality here. Basically, I'm setting up a HTTP route. It's named route, and I'm setting up the destination. This is stable SVC. These services does not exist, but right now the demo is about being able to create virtual service and configure it using patterns. So I have my Istio adapter running. It is the one which would be able to create virtual service because it's a construct of Istio. And I have my Meshery server running. I'm going to apply the pattern and wait for it to be applied. The pattern, while it's getting applied, Let me briefly explain what the pattern is. So here I'm trying to provision STO service mesh, which I think is already present in my cluster, but yeah, I'm trying to provision STO service mesh of version 1.9.1. And then I'm trying to provision a virtual service, create a virtual service. It depends on STO. So basically it says that, hey, once you're sure that STO exists on my system, if it didn't create it, if it does, don't do anything, then go ahead and create a virtual service for me. So it has given me logs that it has successfully created the things that I asked it to create. And it was already running, but let's see if this has been created. A virtual service. So here what I'm doing is I am trying to see if a virtual service, which is in a networking API, STO's networking API group, has been created or not in test namespace. So yeah, I think it is. It is the same configuration that we actually set up there. Most of the time, the configuration that we are doing here would be exactly shown here. But that would be the case 99% of the time. Sometimes it could be possible that we tweak a few things that we provide in here and then we actually pass it on. But the basic idea is that you should be able to create virtual services using patterns, and you should be able to completely configure it and manage its lifecycle using patterns. The same thing would be also accessible in the UI very soon. That is, you should be able to have a dynamic form in there where you can create or destroy or basically manage virtual service and basically all of the resources. That's something I'm not going to demo today because it's very ugly right now. But yeah, if anyone has comments or suggestions or feedback.
Two quick clarifications, Ukarsh. You showed that the virtual service was created by running a Kubernetes CTL command to show that back. Is that something that is also picked up on by MeshSync? Just that we're not.
Yeah, it will be. Okay. Yeah, so it will be picked up by MeshSync also. So MeshSync is right now completely capable of detecting a lot of resources in the Kubernetes cluster. So when we actually basically provision something using patterns, so you can see we actually it's not. Yeah, basically the idea is that we will place some annotations in the metadata, which will help MeshSync able to figure out that what all resource. So let's say that we are creating this virtual service, and virtual service is a single resource, not a very good idea, not a very good example. But let's say we are creating a virtual service here. So in order to be able to get that from MeshSync, what we actually do is we will be placing some annotations in the resources that we are creating. So it is very much possible that one service that is listed here is actually going to create a lot of native Kubernetes resources. Right now for virtual service, as I was saying, it's not a very good example because in this case, it's going to be creating just one virtual service. But that virtual service will have some annotations so that MeshSync can identify that, okay, these 10 resources are actually supposed to represent one application. So basically, it's a way that we are synchronizing what resources patterns are creating with what MeshSync and basically ultimately Meshmap can basically understand. It's a way to synchronize patterns resources with native gates, if that made sense. I said everything in air. I'm not sure if it actually makes sense or not.
It did to me. A more simple question is on line 12. What is going on, by the way? Whoa! I see. Okay, your VS Code was like counting backwards, and it still is.
Yeah.
Oh, you see. Well, between that and the spinning cursor, like, it's a little too fancy for me. I'm having a hard time keeping up. So on line 9, well, what was formerly 12, which, at this point, like, I'm just totally confused. Is that, does that VSC stand for virtual service something, or is that a misspelling of SVC?
No, it doesn't stand for anything. So The thing is, it's the name of the resource that I created.
Just okay, got it.
So you can name it anything. It's not a part of syntax. You can call it anything.
Kind of pattern name or a component.
Yeah, one of the resources. So kind of a service name actually. Pattern name is basically this actually.
Okay.
Is Samir on, or was that Samir just now? No, that was. Okay, we'll have to send Samir the snippet of this recording. This is great. This is just what he was looking for. Are there any aspects of the ways that you can configure, a user of Istio can configure a virtual service that you envision as not currently being supported, or that you understand is not currently being supported in this implementation?
I probably couldn't exactly understand the question.
Yeah, let me rephrase. Like, so in Istio virtual services, users are able to configure virtual services to, somewhat complexly, or more complex than what we see here by way of, either, well, I guess not going through the examples, but there are other options that people can add in. Are there any ways that people can configure a virtual service that you're aware of that isn't being supported here? Like, or we?
Okay, so is the question like that? Okay, so I hope the question is this. That is, right now the schema that we are capturing, that is actually 1.9.1, the virtual service schema that 1.9.1 actually supports. So is the question like that, what if someone is using Istio.8 and it has a construct of virtual service? So will we be able to configure that? Or was the question that if a virtual service already exists, and can pattern configure that one?
Both of those are good questions. I would like to know the answer to both of those. Although, so I think the second question is that you had asked is, so all right, so three questions. One, is this a complete implementation? Is there any attribute of a virtual service that you don't support in this?
No, yeah. So as of 1.9.1, I'm not sure if there is a latest, like a more latest version. So everything that it's CRD would support, that is everything that you can actually go in the virtual service and basically configure it, everything is actually exposed here. Everything till 1.9.1.
Nice. And then for the other two questions, yeah, I guess these might lead to longer conversations than we should, given the agenda that we have. But it sounds like so I'll make a couple of statements and then you can clarify. So so Meshery adapters, service mesh adapters that are made, that for Meshery, they are capable of supporting multiple versions of a given service mesh. So letting someone provision different versions of those meshes. They don't, I think we've done probably it hasn't been a strong use case, and we've probably done a poor job in the past of allowing someone to manage multiple instances of the same type of service mesh that might be running at different versions. And actually, in fact, whether or not they're running at different versions, we've probably done a poor job of letting them identify which of the two different instances of the same service mesh do they want to send subsequent operations to. There's probably some room for improvement here, which means that there's probably room for improvement with respect to kind of the first question that you said, Utkarsh, which is, yeah, if, for example, the user is configuring a virtual service, and maybe they're using a specification that only works with Istio 1.9.1. What happens if Meshery happens to be running Istio version 1.7? The two are incompatible.
Yeah, so for actually, the answer varies for different resources, but if we talk about only virtual service and 1.7, so I get the question, it's like, what if they're incompatible between CRDs? In that case, this will, we will get an error because the schema would kind of let it pass, but Istio would, not Istio, yeah, Istio's controller would basically complain that, hey, it's not valid. I think the admission control would complain, but yeah, we will get an error for 1.7 or for anything that is being provisioned with Istio, with Istio adapter, Meshery Istio adapter, that will work just fine. The reason is that Meshery allows 3 latest version by default, and those 3 because we are right now the schema that we have belongs to V1 Alpha 3. Virtual service schema that we are using belongs to V1 Alpha 3 group. Istio is V1 Alpha 3 API group, and the 3 latest versions they support that basically CRD. It is recently promoted to V1 Beta 1, I suppose, but V1 Alpha 3 hasn't been deprecated. So yeah, basically, if it's being provisioned via Meshery, it won't be an issue, but definitely it would be an issue in case someone is running a really old version of Istio and its schema varies, its virtual service schema varies with the one that we have. The admission controller would complain. Basically.
I'll withhold my questions so we can get to other stuff. Drew has a follow-up question.
And how do I access my chat?
Yeah, how are they versioned? I was just wondering.
Service meshes?
Patterns. Are they
Oh,
versioned?
yeah, sorry. So version is a constant. So we don't do version control. There is a construct for version, that is, you can place a version in there, but it's more like you are using a version control system. You have a VCS, and because you are going to change it here, so VCS is going to be built. So basically, it's like Meshery does not have a version control system over this. So if you change it to 1.0.2, it's same as 1.0.1, at least for now.
Oh, okay. Like they give the person using the patterns the capability to build on top of it. Something like that. Hello.
Yeah, I think my internet connection is unstable. Yeah.
Nothing. I got what you're saying. Thanks, man.
Other comments, and Lee, do you want to talk about service mesh pattern supporting Linkerd and console?
Just briefly, this new capability that Utkarsh is demoing around the use of pattern files. So this YAML file here, it's really concise. It's a simple yet powerful way to configure, to describe your service mesh configuration, your application configuration, the behavior of the mesh that you would like to, like if you'd like to tell it to do something like do a rollout and canary things, or have a traffic test, like a performance test run, all of those things can be described inside of a pattern file. It's the Istio adapter that really has this support today. And there's a bit of mostly copy and paste that needs to happen between the implementation done in the Meshery Istio adapter to other adapters. So if you're on the call and you're into Golang, then this is a great way to help propagate this new service mesh pattern capability across other service mesh adapters, because it's largely a copy and paste thing, but it'll get you in there and learning service meshes, Meshery, and service mesh patterns. So we'll just it's just a call out for a volunteer or 3 on working on service Meshery is adapters.
Okay.
Cool. So if you're interested, say something in Slack or here. Next.
Yeah. Thanks, Lee. I guess we can move on to the next item. We have Anushka, who has been working on redesigning the REST API docs for Meshery. So, Anushka, do you want to share your screen and show what you have been working on?
Yes, sir. So first, I want to mention that this is my first time using Figma. That is why I took few iterations to really understand and make what I have designed. So yeah, I hope the screen is visible now.
Not yet, Anushka.
Okay.
Coming. Still.
Yeah, it's still coming.
It's showing that we are viewing your screen, but I guess could you like stop the share and try it again?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe. To give some context on what Anushka has been working on, we have both REST APIs and GraphQL APIs for Meshery. And for REST APIs, we are automatically generating docs using Swagger, and Piyush has been working on it. And so basically, what Anushka is trying to do is to redesign the automatically generated docs to fit into the Meshery docs. So yes. And Anushka, like we can see your screen now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So as suggested, I went through the available style guides that were available. So I have like used the font and everything according to that. And the other thing that was suggested by Lee was like having the colors that are according to like the brand kit we have already. So I use those colors only, and I have like made them into a little lighter tone. And we did not have any color that was in red, so I used something that was like that I thought might fit with this like design. So yeah, uh, so I wanted feedback on this. Whether do I have to like reiterate and work on this again or anything else?
The documentation is to be implemented in the Meshery UI. I'm not sure about that because the skeleton used is of the Meshery UI. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello?
Yes, no.
You are audible, Ayush.
Can someone answer my question, please?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So Ayush is just politely pointing out that the template that was used, so that, yeah, Anushka, you are using the screen template for the Meshery UI in the Meshery application, and that it looks good, although he's just highlighting that the fact that the REST API reference itself, it'll end up being inside of Meshery docs, and so I think we can sort of safely ignore the
Yeah, that part could be ignored. Like I was just using it. This was as a reference.
Okay.
How dare you?
Other than that, can you just do something with the color that is used with for the get API? Because white color is not matching with it, or it may be because of the cast. It's getting blurred here.
Yeah, wait, let me zoom
Okay, it's clear. That was due to the
yeah,
sharing.
yeah.
It's good.
Uh,
So, hey, Anushka, yeah, some feedback from me, which is one, we don't often get to see and review things in Figma on this call. This is nice. You've put together a high quality design. Like, there aren't small errors that you have sitting around in here. Like, you don't, all of the, um, everything that you have in here, you did on purpose, which is nice. And that's different than, um, which is means that you've done a quality design, which I'm really thankful for because not everyone does that. So kudos on that. A couple of items that for you to consider. One is that it's unobvious, and it's actually I don't think there's two red colors, and I don't know that they're in the Meshery UI Figma. There's a layer 5 UI Figma project that does have two colors, and I'll point those out to you, and you can test to see if they work.
yeah,
Both of them, kind of like the greens, kind of like the teal blue and the Caribbean green, that are two. I'm going to use the wrong color term here, so everyone bear with me. But they're too deep in color, like they're too like you've faded them out here, which makes
yeah.
things legible. So that's great. Like it's the same color, but it's not as intense, and so nice. The effect of that doing so on the green means that the white text and the light green have a fairly low contrast, and so give it
Okay,
some thought. Like maybe we've hit the inflection point by which the contrast is not enough. Maybe that needs to be black text. Maybe not.
okay,
Last point of there's kind of two other points of feedback. Under the the response code 200, it's kind of either it's kind of a special code, so you might consider putting that in bold or
okay,
denoting it some other way, or like putting it in like a courier or a system font, so it looks like a type, it looks like a terminal type thing.
okay, okay. Got it. Yeah,
The other item, these are just like, hey, I look like if we went forward with just this, like it's pretty good. These things that I'm getting to are, you've done a good job if I'm really having to reach to give feedback. So take that with a grain of salt. And that is that I think I would contend that the current table and by the way, everyone, just again, like Navendu was giving context, there's a version of this implementation that's in docs.meshery.io today that Anushka is improving on, and this is an improvement. But the table in there, the name, format, type, I would contend that table may not need the coloring of that table. I think or I would suggest is probably good to go as is. It might need some font changes. I don't recall, but I wouldn't necessarily advocate for a gray background in the if you're going to use a gray background in the table, that it would just be alternating rows so that people
I
can
could
read them.
suggest one thing. Please try removing the lines, border lines. Let them be transparent and have a circular cells. That would look nice.
So,
like that we
Anushka,
have here for these get and post, right?
I didn't get you. Can you repeat,
Uh,
please?
well, you just said that. Okay, can you please repeat what you said? I
I
think.
just asked if for the table that you have name, format, and type, if you could just have a space between them, between the cells, and make its a border to none and circular. That
Okay,
would,
you want this border to be like in round, just like this.
huh,
Okay, okay,
and have a space between the cells.
okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'll see if this works.
Huh.
I'll ask it.
Just try it.
Thank you, Anushka. Everybody's a critic, particularly me. That's great.
No worries.
So thanks for the feedback, Ayush. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Thank you. a lot.
Anushka, just
Yeah.
would we expect that you might be giving reflection upon the GraphQL docs as well?
Okay. Okay.
Okay, good. All right, we just signed you up for more work. That's great. All right.
Yeah. I'll do.
Awesome. Thank you, Anushka. Next, we have Gaurav, who will be demoing Meshery filters, filter UI. So filters basically means WASM filters, WebAssembly filters. So we use that to we apply those filters to NY proxies, and we can use it to configure that. So Gaurav has been working on adding a user interface in Meshery for applying filters. Yeah, and the basic thread commands are done. So Gaurav is demoing that.
Yeah, so hope I am audible properly and my internet connection remains stable for the time. Yeah. So recently we have added support for the filters, that is WASM filters in Meshery. Navendu just give an overview of that. So today I will be demonstrating the CRUD operations on the filters, and we will be also doing a difference from the patterns one. So is it loading? Yeah. So first I will be show that filters files are uploaded successfully. Okay. Let me delete this file for now. Yeah, it's deleted successfully, and for uploading the filters file, why it's not uploading. So yeah, so here we can see the filter file is uploading and deleting successfully, and the major difference what we have in filters from the pattern one is that in the patterns UI, here we can see we can edit the patterns from here the UI itself. So using that update button over here, but in the filters UI, we don't allow the users to edit it from over here. So later on, we are thinking of applying uh, a major form of React JSON schema through which a user can create a filter over from the Meshery UI itself, filter UI itself. So that's was a quick demo for the filter one.
Feedbacks. Yeah. To add to this, like Gaurav and I are working on like the deploy part. Like currently it doesn't deploy these filters. We can just only perform the CRUD operations. So I have some questions regarding that, but I guess I will post that in Slack to save
Okay.
everyone's time. Yeah.
Yeah. Any further questions for me?
Rob, in terms of an item that you might get, well, a couple of things. One, if you would consider these things, maybe the answer is no. These are stupid suggestions. So again, if that's the case, you can provide that feedback privately. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay. I'm joking. Actually, you should really provide that publicly. As a matter of fact, just as a reminder to everyone on the call, please do as much as you can publicly for a few reasons. One, everybody learns at the same time when you do it. it gives everyone an opportunity to engage and express opinion or help or do things. And it also helps the few maintainers that are here not avoid repeating themselves, like answering it, the same question a bunch of different times to different people. And so think twice. Some conversations have to be private. Like if you're going to tell Lee that his suggestion is stupid, then I suggest that you do that publicly. Really, I do. But anyway, I recognize some things need to be private. Fine, maybe you start private, but try to bring it public as often as you can. It's nice. So Gaurav, a couple of things you might consider is that in the table itself, at some point users might want to do bulk actions, like they want to delete 2 filters at the same time. And so
Yeah. And one more thing I would like to point out that once in the patterns also and in the filters also. So when the user is uploading the patterns or the filters file and we click on delete, so it gets deleted, but we need to click over here to close that pop-up window or all. So I think another feature should be added that it should be closed automatically once it's deleted or created.
close the modal, maybe some bulk actions for things like delete, most notably. And then if you would, there's an API, there should be a Meshery server API that, and Navendu can nod his head that this is true, for deploying the filter. So if a filter has been uploaded and it's time to like apply it, there should be a deploy endpoint. Now, the deploy endpoint may or may not do what it's supposed to do, but from the UI's, from your perspective, that's somebody else's problem. So if you would, and since this is a beta, an experimental area, if you would go ahead and take that, I suggest like take that next step and put in the action to do a deployment, and let's start to, that'll help us think through what that user interaction needs to be. Because it may be that like, oh, that is a stupid suggestion, Lee. Like you don't do the deployment here. You go over to the service mesh that you want to deploy it into, and that's where you do it. So
Yeah, I was just about to mention that, like, do we need to add a deploy endpoint? Like we can just pass in this filter file directly to the adapter, right? And the adapter handles the rest of the stuff. That is that was what I was thinking. Like, Meshery UI.
Fine for that. Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So that was all for the filters demo.
Thank you, Gaurav. That was a good demo. Next, we have a short demo by Aditi, who has been working on Meshery CTL context delete. Aditi, do you want to share that? Share your screen?
Yeah, give me a minute.
Yeah. And yeah, all yours, Aditi.
Yeah, so this is like the first attempt to get some interactivity into Meshery, and so I'll just we're starting with the context delete function. So I'll just show my config.yaml. So I have local 2, 3, 4, 5, and test. And the current context is local. So what I'm trying to address with this PR is if the user tries to delete current context and that goes unchecked, the commands just after it could fail. So we want to give the user a choice to set a context which will be the next current context once they delete the existing one. Yes, so this is where the interactivity comes in. I pick local 4 for now, and you can see that it is deleted. Now let me try to show you how the flag works. So because this has to be scriptable so that it can be automated, I have added the set flag. The set flag was chosen because it was already part of the context command, I think, and a similar user experience is always good. So the set flag, and yes, so if the user picks no, it's this delete is aborted immediately. Yeah, okay, this is a bug I have to fix, the silent flag, but yeah, other than that, this is it. It's a pretty short demo.
That looks good. Yeah, so like it would be scriptable, and yeah, I guess we should add more interactivity to other parts in Meshery CTL, and this is a
Yeah.
good start. Yeah, I think Lee has some opinions. Lee.
Yeah, I think Niven, you actually said what I was going to say, which is that, like, yeah, you can imagine with a command like Meshery CTL system context view that I refer to that one fairly often to figure out like what context am I currently in, and and then that command works quite well for telling me the name of my context, and it also spits out like the full text of that view. However, I could see that changing into an interactive, like I didn't specify, I said Meshery CTL system context view, and I didn't specify what context I want to view. The command itself just says, well, if the user didn't provide it, then we'll just show them the current one. But you could imagine that, we will just show them the details of their current context. You could imagine that changing to, oh, well, not only will we give them the name of their current context, but maybe also we would give them an interactive list so that they could pick which one they wanted to see details of. By the way, Aditi or others, if you go to take on that particular use case, if you don't mind, give consideration to the fact that it is a fairly frequent use case, at least for me, that I don't know what context I'm in and I'd like to see that. And so if you change the system context view command to an interactive prompt, if there's another more convenient command for people to discern what their current context is, that would be nice. Maybe that's its own special subcommand. It's, Meshery CTL system context, view current, or I don't know. But it would be a shame to change that around, enter the user into an interactive mode that they didn't really want to go into. Because you could see, we would go into hopefully everyone's tracking what I'm saying, but you could go into the interactive mode and it would probably have an asterisk next to the current context. And then that would tell me, and I would cancel out of that to answer my question, which is, what is my current context? I'll write this down so it's more clear.
Awesome. Yeah. That's something we should consider about. Yes, we are over time. Should we, Jubril, like, do you have a quick update on Meshery CTL GitHub action?
Yeah, I do actually. Okay, so small recap. I'm working on a GitHub action to perform service mesh performance tests. And over the last few weeks, I finally got around to making it an actual action, because initially it was just a workflow. but now I'm starting to port this over to natural action, and I would like to show what that looks like today. It's not quite ready, but update. Share my screen. Is my screen visible? Yeah. Okay. So basically, one of the requirements is the user should be able to pass in a token, and that's what I have right here. And there's a small description. So when this action is to run, it needs a Docker file, which is what I have here. But so this would deploy Meshery, and by the time the container starts up, it's going to call this shell script, which I have here. This will actually perform the tests and get the user's token, which I'm doing up here. So this should be able, this would run performance tests. So that's it for now. It's not quite done yet. But
That's great. This is, certainly further, or you're continuing to advance here. This is good. I like this. I haven't seen some of this, which is nice. Jupiter, no doubt you've been considering this as you've gone to sort of shift from kind of a statically configured workflow more toward an action in which you're abstracting some things away, you're requiring inputs and kind of and taking those variables. If you would, and consider this more deeply, or if your thought is totally finished, fine. But the question is, do you think that we can arrive at a single GitHub action called, the Meshery CTL GitHub action, which is intended to really take, it's not specific, like there's not one specific for just SMI conformance. There's not one specific for just performance tests, but there's a generic one that, conveniently allows people to use it for whatever Meshery CTL action they're looking to do. Or is that too much? Does that make it unwieldy? Like, does it make the action too hard, too difficult to use, and too difficult to create?
oh no, I definitely think it's possible. If I was an action user, I would actually like that, such that I could specify if I want performance test or conformance tests, and then the action just takes care of all of that. So it's something I hope to work towards, but I'm trying to get this done first and update this as I go.
And Jubil, for my part, if it greases the wheels for your efforts, I'd be happy to meet separately to just provide, try to help you advance the effort. I know that token.
Thanks. I like that.
Nice, good. If you guys have feedback for Jibril, please go see him in the Slack channel. I know we had one more item today, and so, and Nivendu, as you consider entertaining that other item, that you might want to say, hey, no one is obligated to hang out for longer. Some of us will talk about Meshery all day long. I'm game for that, but not all of you have that luxury or are that interested. And so, Nivendu, if Ayush speaks next, maybe just thank everybody for the time here and let them off the hook if they need to go.
Yeah. So guys, thank you for joining the call. So for newcomers, we have a call tomorrow, and for others, I guess we will meet Friday on the community call. Bye guys, and over to you, Ayush.
Okay, I will share my screen. So is it visible?
Yeah.
So I was just asking, when we go to this route, that is a management, we have to select which one we have to see, which adapter we need to access right now. So this is a bit tedious to open up a list. Rather than this, we can we could have something like these, like there will be buttons on the top, not exactly like this. I was trying to use Figma for the first time. Something like we have buttons on the top so that it's easy to access, and rather than having these cards, as every time we won't be needing these descriptions, and these texts are way big to cover the whole screen. Something like we could have something some lists list like these, and this could be expanded. Also, I was there was question just I don't know how why when we have we can access the different different adapters from this URL, then why we are having separate URLs for each and every one, like for Kuma, Istio. Could we just remove these and have only this thing?
Yeah. Yeah, this is yeah, you guys are on to something. Pisses me off. No. This is correct. Yeah, you guys are onto something. By the way, there's a factoid floating around somewhere out there in user experience, like user design land, that says a human really only likes to reason over or can reason over about 7 inputs at a time. And I don't have a reference for you for that, where that comes from, but how many inputs are here? I don't know. There's quite a
It's
few. Right?
9. There are 9 of these.
Yeah, and actually, it's disappointing because there should be 10, because we have. But anyway, so why? Well, okay, understandably, if you understand that, then why do we have 9? Not only those 9 plus the other 9 above it. Well, for marketing, that's why. Because screenshots then show the fact that Meshery is quite powerful and manages a lot. Okay, fine. I think we passed that point. I think it is understood by most that if they're touching Meshery or they're looking at Meshery, that's why it's called Meshery, because it does more than just one mesh. And so yeah, you guys are probably about right. There's a couple of reasons why it's probably time to reduce the user input overload. How many of you have run network service mesh? 0. How many of you have run Istio? 2 of you, or 4 of you, maybe somewhere in there. And that's totally fine. Like, as a matter of fact, if you never run any of them, you can still do a lot of good damage or good contributions to the project. With never running any of them, it doesn't really matter anyway. But so my point of the moral of the story is, most users, most of the time, they'll just be running one service mesh. Like that's true. Like, and again, like I'm gonna digress for a second and say, well, if you're then asking, then why the heck do you support 10 of them when most people are only going to run one? It's like, well, that's not the point. That's cream on the top. It's the cherry on the top. It's the mentionable after the fact. Meshery does these awesome things about managing service meshes, like letting you apply service mesh patterns, letting you see active logs streaming from multiple containers at the same time, lets you visualize your mess and your mess and your infrastructure. And it's like, wow, that's compelling. That's great. And it lets you manage filters and apply filters and configure your filters. And like, oh, okay, this is helpful. Like Istio doesn't come with a UI that does this. And so nice. And then you say, oh yeah, also, it doesn't matter what mesh you're running, it does it for any of them. Then you just you drop the mic and walk out of the room. So we don't have to start with the mic drop first. Is kind of what you guys are getting to. Ayush and Adi, assuming that you were, part of the evil genius behind this plan. Ayush, if you go back to the Figma mockups for a second, and to let people kind of digest them, in contrast to the long menu?
No, I'm not specifically telling to remove these. We could have these, but we could change the routes. uh, we can have a single route management and have different accessing different adapters at a time with this kind of bar, rather than only through this and changing it according to the adapter we are using. Like we don't have to create, we should not be having two different layouts like this one and this one.
Yeah. Right. There's when I explain it, maybe it'll sound better, but the fact that I have to explain, if you ever have to explain your UI, then you're doing it wrong. And so I'm just super tickled that you guys are doing some redesign here, because we so very much need some fresh thoughts and something new. And so if you go back to your Meshery instance for a moment, when you click on management, which I think in the mockups it says lifecycle, which is what we ultimately want to start to call these things, like because it's performance management, it's filter management, it's patterns management, it's SMI conformance management. It's like, so calling this management is probably wrong. It needs to be called lifecycle. And so good. But when you click on that link, it's like, well, you want to manage service meshes, but the user at this point hasn't identified explicitly which mesh they want to manage. And so that's why they get that extra toolbar up top saying, well, from this picker, which one did you want to do? And what happens is, if you click on an adapter on the left-hand menu that you are not actively running, like a Citrix service mesh potentially, or whatever one you're not actively running, it will show you that top toolbar again, because that, like, if you click on Octarine, I think that we will see this happen. So your Octarine adapter is not running. So what it does is takes you back to management. This can be,
that all could be didn't they could be these buttons, what I'm saying, these buttons, if some of them is not active, and like it's rerouting to this page, we could just disable those buttons, like these are not configured or not configured yet, or we are not using yet, those kind of things. Like main purpose, what I'm saying, I'm trying to say that, like, we have, this is slash management, but when we go to some specific one, it is here telling it goes like a it creates a whole separate route.
for my part, I'm totally 100% supportive of, like, tearing this open and doing something totally different. Does anybody else have feedback for?
One more thing, few things, like when we I will this one, if I just add next year, these type of notifications should be stored somewhere, like in notifications somewhere, because it's executing. If it disappears, it's kind of dizzy to me how when it is going to complete, or is it completed or not. These type of things to be needs to be stored somewhere, I think. Also when we like add some add-on, it will just show it is up and it is still executing, so we need to disable these while these are getting executed. Because if I uncheck this right now and it says operation executing, after some time it will say that add-on is added, but after that it will give a error giving that the process was not successful. That is because I just unchecked it, but it will be still added. So we need to check this disability thing of the buttons.
you know, like talking to my wife is usually right. I've shut my
We should
mouth.
not be creative.
Anybody else have feedback for the fantastic things that Ayush is saying?
I have a small feedback. Like if you go back to your Figma design, you have a way to show all the things that all the options which one particular subsection has in this particular layout, which we can't currently have. So like a person can see all the things that particular adapter can do. Like
Yes.
when you click on play and delete, you get certain options. Right? You can also list them while you are expanding and collapsing them.
Yes.
That might be a better way to show off the capabilities of Meshery.
Like my basic point was these descriptions are not always required. If a person gets used to it, and then only the headings would be enough. And these cards, first of all, these cards are not made well. These are not aligned properly, as well as these are taking too much space.
Yeah, both are achievable. I consider. It's like actually to reinforce the point that Ayush is currently making. The icon, like if you're whenever you're using a piece of software, there's icons and buttons to click, and just like in the mock-up up here, you've got 6, 7, 8 different 9 different service mesh icons. And wait a second, what's that bear? I don't know, because it doesn't have a label. It's like, well, of course, that's Kuma. I work with Kuma every day. I don't need a stupid label on the thing. I don't need. I like the icon, not the label. And it's like kind of like to Ayush's point. Over time, the more intuitive the UI is, the more familiar it is compared to prior experiences you've had, the less explanation that the user needs. And kind of going back to my earlier remark, if you have to explain your UI, it's like a bad joke. You don't want to explain the if you had to explain your joke, it's not funny, is the point. So I just had to explain my joke, which made it okay. 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 It's another thing that my wife hates. She thinks that when I think I'm funny, then she definitely thinks it's not funny. All right. We need some ideation here. What I was going to say about, I think that you can achieve both. That sometimes it's done through user preferences, like users. You've seen software that they ask you, do you want to see the label or not see the label? Do you want to see a really tiny icon or a big, fat one? And okay, like, those are things that it might be that what you do is start off with over explaining the UI to the user, where you have labels and you sort of, and then over time, as they become a power user, they become familiar with the various user preferences, and they can disable some things. And to use a term to reinforce the suggestion by Dhruv is that there's some amount of, I mean, it's not entirely just marketing is the reason why we have a list of service meshes. There's truth in that, sure. But it's also about discoverability. The fact that like, I didn't know Citrix had a service mesh. Oh, interesting. And then people, like because they can see it, they go into it. But there's obviously a line in there somewhere where there's a like some of this is refining and understanding. Some users are on a journey. Some it's the first time ever, so maybe leaning into a little harder into discoverability. Okay. For others, it's like, get out of my way. I want to do like as few clicks as possible to just use this utility. It's not about sitting here in the UI and reading everything through. It's just like, I want to, I'm just going to go use the GitHub action now. Like I don't even want to bring up the UI. I just want to do the, yeah. And so part of this is actually you in specific, I don't know that, and for a number of the others of you, Ritesh and Sayatan and Rishab, I don't, and others, and Hina, and I don't know that everyone has seen the work that has been done around the configuration wizard, but it's not a part of a current release. There's about 3 or 4 community members who've been working on this initial configuration wizard, such that when someone launches Meshery UI for the first time, or they launch a new Meshery deployment, they can go through this installation stepper, you know, like next. They configure Meshery, and the point of that is, like, it's one of those things that you can also dismiss. It's like, oh, do you want to do the configuration wizard? And click here to never see this message again, because beyond that, more of that type of thinking is needed. Hopefully, if you're on the call now, or if you're in the community, if you don't have access to these mock-ups, then just say something, and let's get you in there. Let's get some ideas going. Grab some screenshots from some of your favorite software, and let's reflect on that. Let's think about that. There's like one of the things that you're all Gmail users, except for someone who joined recently who's a Hotmail user, and I feel poorly for them, not because Hotmail's lesser, but because they won't have access to the Google Drive, to the Layer 5, the community drive. But the reason I bring up Gmail is you've probably all seen the views that they have. I forget the exact name of what it's called, but there's a type of design or view that is comfortable, dense, and super large, or whatever the other thing is called. And you can, as a user, switch between those, and you're either shown a lot of labels and a lot more things, or you're not. So, well, they're probably getting that fairly right. They're actually showing you as a user. It's like other words that they could have used to describe it are super user, which is probably dense, noob, which is probably your grandma that can't see the screen, so it's huge, or whatever. So those are the kinds of things that we could consider in here as well. Like for my part, having been around this baby for a while, Meshery, it's okay for me to call it ugly, which is, yeah, those UIs that we currently have, they are ugly. I mean, like the font is way too huge. Why are we showing people the sublabels? Why is it a plus sign and a trash can icon? And like, what if there's just, so thank goodness Utkarsh is bringing really this highly detailed way of configuring the mesh that now we can begin to expose all of those nerd knobs into the UI. And really the only nerd knobs that we have in the UI right now are those little switches. And I sometimes go through and click on them just for fun, because that's about the only thing that's actually fun to do in the UI. And it's actually really responsive. And to Ayush's other point is, like, Ayush, there's a plan in place in the link in the chat to overhaul the messaging, the notification center. So right now you've got 3 errors in your upper right-hand corner, and there's a start to something that could be glorious in terms of, like, what operations did I invoke? When did I invoke them? Did they go through? Can I restart them? Can I replay them? Can I retract them? Like, what happens if Lee was signed into the same Meshery server, which he can bring up he can hit the same URL if it's publicly facing and sign in. And what happens if he was invoking operations, and, like, are those my failures or his? Probably his, but let's get into this, man. Let's everybody jump into Figma. Let's everybody's got an opinion, everybody's a user, everybody's got a mouse. And so most of you are going to be wrong, by the way. I'm just going to start with that. But if you don't get in there and express some ideas and get some opinions, we won't. Like, we've been stuck with this silly UI for way too long. That's my back to you, Navindu.
Also, one more thing. This Meshery should be stuck at the top. Why is it moving?
Wait, say it again. It should be what at the top? Oh, why is it?
It should be stuck in that at the top. Like when we scroll this management bar, this toolbar, it's fixed. This Meshery should also be fixed, I think.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no, I never noticed that. We're finally to a point wherein there are so many options in the left-hand menu. Like, there's so much to do inside the project that, yeah, makes sense.
Awesome. A lot of stuff to think about and a lot of things to be redesigned, probably. So we are only half an hour overtime. That's good. So, and we have 17 people still on the call. That might be some record, I think. So thanks everyone for joining and staying up so late. And I guess we'll see you in the community call. Bye.
Thank you, Devin. Thank you, Ayush. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.